What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about the first round matchup between the Chicago Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Chicago Bulls finished in the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and the Milwaukee Bucks obviously landed in the 3rd seed of the Eastern Conference. Now, although I don't give us too much of a chance, we are the heavy underdogs heading into this series against the Milwaukee Bucks. I want to talk about what it's going to take for the Chicago Bulls to make this as competitive as it could possibly be. And I've always said, if you make it competitive, if you're competing every single game, you always give yourself that chance to walk away with the win. And if you get enough of those competitive games and you get enough of those victories, we could potentially, very small chance, but potentially walk out of that series as the victors, and we can move on into the next round. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the current Chicago Bulls team heading into the NBA playoffs. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Do you feel like we got a good chance to walk away with some wins in this series? Do you think there is no chance whatsoever? There are many people that are positive and negative at the moment about the Chicago Bulls, and I can't say I blame any one of those people for feeling the way that they feel. It's a very tough time. It's also a very good time to be a Bulls fan. We're walking into the NBA playoffs, first time in 5 years, I believe it is. It wasn't 7 like the last time I said. And at the end of the day, that is a very good feeling to hold on to. But also, many of us are fearful of what we're going to see in the NBA playoffs. Many people want us to make it competitive, and many people don't have that faith that we can make it competitive. So I want to talk about what I think the Chicago Bulls can do to at least make this competitive, because I can't come out here and say I think we're going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. I'd be lying to myself if I say we're going to walk out of this series as a win. I would be lying to myself, and that's not what I want to do to the Bulls fans that watch this video. If you believe that, that's great, but I personally think that the goal for the Chicago Bulls is to make this competitive, whether we win or we lose the series. Of course, I'd like us to win. I want to go into the second round feeling confident. I want to go and try and compete until the highest point, the NBA championship. But things have to be realistic as well. And what we've seen in the March stretch, the final stretch for the Chicago Bulls in the NBA season, has not been a good one. So I've lost that faith, but hopefully the Bulls can make this competitive and maybe that faith can return once again. But talking about the matchup, ladies and gentlemen, there are many things that the Milwaukee Bucks do that makes them a dangerous team to verse. And we're going to be discussing what the Chicago Bulls as well have to do in order to compete with the Milwaukee Bucks. So the first thing I want to talk about is the three-point shooting. You might think of Milwaukee and you might think it's Giannis. Giannis is going to be the one. It's going to be a paint game where everybody attacks the paint. Everybody just drives in, gets foul calls, stuff of that nature. I think many people really lose sight of how successful the Milwaukee Bucks can be from the three-point line. Now, the reason why is it's because Giannis is probably not the biggest threat out there at the three-point line. Giannis is going to be a paint dominator. He's going to be a guy that's going to slash to the basket and get foul calls more than he is going to be a main three-point guy. But if you look outside of Giannis, you got guys like Jrue Holiday, guys like Chris Middleton, guys like Grayson Allen, guys like Wesley Matthews, guys like Brook Lopez. And I can list the entire team of the Milwaukee Bucks to really give you an idea of the three-point threats we're going to be dealing with in this NBA playoffs. So I think that's the main way they're going to hurt us, because I think in terms of matching us in the paint, the Milwaukee might get more paint points than the Chicago Bulls, but our bread and butter is not the three-point line. I know for the longest time we had the highest three-point percentage in the NBA, but we had it on the least amount of attempts, and by far in this March stretch, we are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA. So our bread and butter is probably going to be that mid-range or attacking the basket. That's where we're going to get the most of our shots from. That's where our success will most likely come from. But the Milwaukee Bucks have success in the paint, but they have great success at the three-point line. If we get a hot Milwaukee Bucks team from the three-point line, they are going to be one of the toughest teams to beat in the NBA. So we have to make sure as a team, we are guarding the three-point line as a top priority. I'm talking about running out in control. I'm talking about ensuring that the shooters of the Milwaukee Bucks are heavily guarded, knowing the scouting report, making sure that you leave certain guys open while you get the most contested guys, or the guys that can make those shots have to be the ones that are primarily going to be contested. can never leave their side. Stuff like that will be a big bonus for the Chicago Bulls. If we can nullify the shooters of the Milwaukee Bucks, that gives us a great chance to have our own success, and it also gives us a great chance because I think we can compare and we can beat Milwaukee in the paint. In all honesty, I really feel like we can. Giannis, of course, is a massive, massive threat, and he's going to get his points in the paint. But we've got Zach LaVine that likes to drive. We've got DeMar DeRozan that will often make his money from the mid-range or in the paint as well. Again, I really hope Vucevic will be a paint presence in this series more than just a perimeter threat, because we know his season as a perimeter threat has not been very good for the Chicago Bulls. So he has to get back to what works. You got guys that can run off the pick and roll. Patrick Williams as well. When he wants to play aggressive, he can get easy fouls in the paint as well. I think if everything goes well, we can match up well with Milwaukee in the paint, but I do not think we can match up well with Milwaukee at the three-point line. So our job defensively has to stop their three-point shooting and make this a paint game. Make this, whoever attacks the paint more will win the game, because I think in that area we might have a chance to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. We have to ensure that our big three plays well. Zach, DeMar, and Vooch need to have a good series in order for us to be competitive. We've seen countless times throughout the March stretch, April stretch, if one of them or multiple of them have bad games, we're not going to come close to beating these teams. It's been very unfortunate that the big three has not really worked out well, in my opinion, in this March and April stretch. And we need to see that change big time. It's as simple as that. Zach LaVine cannot have games where he's shooting step back three, very low efficiency, and getting very low point percentages. We can't see a month of March and April for DeMar DeRozan where he's mainly struggled and has glimpses of good games here and there, like the 50-point game against the Clippers and the 40-point game, funnily enough, against the Milwaukee Bucks. You can't see Vucevic go cold 1 from 6 from the three-point line every single game. These performances will not work for the Chicago Bulls. And those three guys, our main offense. Whether we want them to be or we don't want them to be, that is our main go-to offense in my opinion. So we need to see all of them have relatively good games. Again, you're gonna get those games where one of them struggles. But when they do struggle scoring, got to make an impact defensively. Got to make an impact in more ways than one. Got to be a playmaker. Got to be a good rebounder. Got to be a good team player. If you're struggling, you have to rely being a team player. And I think the big three needs to learn that more than anybody, because if they're stumbling on defense, if they're not trying on defense, if they're playing isolation all day long and they're missing those shots, that's going to kill this team before we even begin. So those three have to play very well. I also think the other guys will have to step up. Again, it needs to be a team effort to beat a team like the Milwaukee Bucks. There's no one person that's going to beat you. If we're going to rely on Giannis to drop 50 and no one else is going to help him, then Giannis can drop his 50, but the Bucks will lose that game because there's going to be no one else to help them. But they're that type of team that everybody gets involved. The last 4 games that the Chicago Bulls participated in the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 of them we did well in because we stopped their three-point shooting and they were very cold from the three-point line. And the other 2, the three-point shooters got open, everybody got involved, everybody played well. And if you look at the stat sheet for the Milwaukee Bucks all the way through, everybody played a part. Not one of them were slackers, not one of them were passengers. We need to see the same thing for the Chicago Bulls. I'm talking about the Ios. I'm talking about the Carusos. I'm talking about the Kobe Whites. I'm talking about the Patrick Williams. I'm talking about the Tristan Thompsons. If one or more of those guys are slackers, then Billy Donovan has to make the proper adjustments and send them to the bench not to be played that game. For example, I said this to a friend of mine. The playoffs is about heavy adjustments. And the Bucks are going to play the players that are going to give the most out of their minutes. It's as simple as that. It's the NBA playoffs. You don't have time to try and trust these guys if they're not delivering for you. You don't have that many chances in the NBA playoffs. So if Kobe White comes out in the first half, has a 0-point game, maybe 0 from 5, 0 from 6 shooting, adjustments have to be made and Kobe White can't play the rest of the game. That's my personal belief, because if he's hurting us on the offensive end, he will probably be hurting us on the defensive end as well. So then you have to bring a Derrick Jones Jr. You have to bring in a Troy Brown Jr. You have to bring a Matt Thomas. You need to have something else in there to make or catch Milwaukee off guard. No passengers on this team allowed. If there are passengers on the team, they have to be benched, and they need to get other guys in there that maybe can find a way to contribute. And that is something that's going to be very important. The in-game adjustments and the lack of passengers will make this a very competitive series as well. Because as much as DeMar, Vuce, and Levine need to play well, them alone will not win us the series. That's why I said the Minnesota Timberwolves game is very important for those role players like Patrick Williams and Io, and Troy Brown, and Derrick Jones Jr., guys like Tyler Cook, maybe even Tony Bradley, whoever we're deciding to play in this playoff series, because they perform well, in my opinion, some of those guys. And that will give them the confidence to come into this NBA playoffs and hopefully try to imitate and play the same way, especially for Patrick Williams, who was so aggressive in that game. It was a beautiful sight to see. We could potentially see an aggressive version of Patrick Williams because he's now got that confidence and belief in himself that he can really impact this team when he plays like that. He said it himself. The Bulls fans, the Bulls coaches, everybody will be saying that to him as well. He understands now how important being aggressive is. And if he isn't aggressive, we will see that Patrick Williams isn't aggressive, and then he has to be benched, in my opinion. It goes the same way with everybody else. And the last thing I want to talk about for the Chicago Bulls is that we need to see different rotations and different experiments. I heard Billy Donovan say that we need to try, we might see Tristan Thompson and Vucevic play in a series like this. Now, we saw one game where that didn't work against the Milwaukee Bucks, but one game doesn't mean that it won't work in the next. Again, it's also a situation where if you keep trying it, you might be considered insane, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result or a different result. If it doesn't work this time around, let's say we start at game one and it's terrible, that's something we might not have to see again, and then you need to figure out different experiments. Again, in-game adjustments, experimenting with the lineup, finding ways to make this team work. I've seen a couple of comments that say throughout the game, Zach and DeMar shouldn't play together so we can rely on a more defensive prioritized team. That could definitely work, in my opinion. But we're going to see DeMar start the game with Zach LaVine, and we're going to see DeMar and Zach LaVine end the game. But throughout the game, we can see them play a part and see how it works for the Chicago Bulls. But also, you got people saying that those two can't work without each other because they're just going to get double teamed. It's a two-way sword, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer, but the coaching staff has to get it right in this NBA playoffs if we're going to make it competitive. If we don't see any in-game adjustments, if we don't see any rotational pieces that are failing, not being taken out of the game, that's going to hurt the Chicago Bulls as well. So these are just some of the things that can make this a competitive series against the Milwaukee Bucks. It doesn't guarantee a win, no guarantees in the NBA playoffs, but it makes it competitive. It might give us a couple of games where we can win. We might be able to get one on the road if we do things like this. So just to sum it up, three-point defending has to be a must for the Chicago Bulls. We leave too many guys open from the three-point line, we will be left in the dust very quickly. I think we can personally compete with the Milwaukee Bucks in the paint. They don't really have that outside of Giannis, a massive paint presence in there. They don't have a Joel Embiid. Brook Lopez cannot bully Nikola Vucevic in the paint. I hope we never see that. Bobby Portis as well could potentially be someone, but I really think that with LaVine, with DeRozan, with Vucevic, and maybe with an aggressive Patrick Williams, we can compete with the Milwaukee Bucks in the paints. But we got to be good defensively on the three-point shots specifically. Also, we got to make sure that the big three play well while other guys also step up. No passengers are allowed for the Chicago Bulls. If you're a passenger, just stay on the bench and don't come back into the game. Simple as that. And also, the in-game adjustments are very important. Now, there's one thing I haven't mentioned, and that's the pick and roll. And the reason why, because I personally don't think we're going to be able to fix the pick and roll. Let's be honest. I think the pick and roll is going to be exactly the same. I think we're going to see guys fight over screens, but not get over the screens. I don't think Vucevic is going to step up. And I think we're going to see a very dominant Milwaukee Bucks on the pick and roll. But I personally don't think we're going to be able to fix that. If we haven't fixed it all season, it's been our biggest issue all season. If we haven't fixed it then, how are we going to fix it in the NBA playoffs? I didn't mention that on purpose, but many of you guys that will say we need to fix the pick and roll, I agree with you. I just personally don't see how we're going to do it. I think we can make an effort at the three-point line. I think we can compete with Milwaukee in the paint. I think in-game adjustments can be made. I don't think we can fix the pick and roll. I honestly don't. I think the personnel that we have, the pick and roll is going to stay the exact same. There's no fixing it in my opinion. But again, you can prove me wrong. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful and safe day. Get ready for the NBA playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. We are a little bit under a week until we get to play that first game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Usually those surprises come in game 1. So the Bulls might come out with a little bit of a surprise in store for Milwaukee, but obviously we'll have to wait and see. This could be a very good series for us. It could be a very bad series for us, but only time will tell, and that experience will mean everything regardless of the outcome. Take care.